Speaking Human.
Today on Speaking Human, we phone in our thoughts on the new iPhone 10 and share our recommendations for some must-have iPhone apps. If this podcast recognizes you using our new facial recognition feature, the show will start now.
Speaking Human.
Welcome to Speaking Human, where we simplify the world of marketing for humans. I'm Shad Conley, and with me is my co-host, Patrick, never met an iPhone I didn't like, Jebber.
You're using my love for iPhones against me. Again.
I wouldn't say against you.
I felt like it was a dig.
Well, I think you made it pretty clear when you got that iPhone tattooed on your back like John Wick.
It's got a lot of really cool apps on it, though, that'll be obsolete in 10 years. And
It's nice you have Angry Birds on there, which is pretty hot right now.
it goes well with my Angry Birds tattoo.
Yeah, and your face. That one you got on your face, that was kind of big.
Well, yeah, but that's Dropbox, so it's different.
You have a lot of technology tattoos that'll, may not go the distance. We don't know. I thought it was weird when you got that Quickster tattoo in 2010 or whenever that was.
Well, Quickster could have been big, had Netflix just stuck with it.
You just jumped the gun on that. You got it a little too fast.
This is why it's important for everyone to know, is the iPhone the most important piece of technology of our lifetime? I think it is, simply because I've got all these tattoos all over me.
You're so convinced the iPhone is such an important piece of tech that you got it tattered all over your body, right?
That's what you do with things that you hold near and dear in your life. You get them tatted on your body.
Yeah, otherwise no one would know how much you like them. I made the mistake in, 1988 of getting a tattoo of a corded phone.
Yeah, the cord that goes all the way down your leg.
It gets all tangled and twisted together. So that was a mistake. I regret that a little bit.
Like most tattoos.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, circling back to your question, about the iPhone, is it the most important piece of technology of our lifetime? I don't know if it's the most important, but I'd say it's up there. As far as consumer technology goes. If you're not counting like the internet, I'd probably put it in the top thing along with, like laptop and GPS and flat screens. Just because the smartphone in general kind of changed the way we do everything. And the iPhone was, to me, the specific device that took it to the next level. I mean, if you look at basically every phone that's come out since the iPhone, you see that influence there.
Yeah, well, it was definitely the influencer of pretty much everything that came after it, for sure.
Yeah, and to a point where almost everybody's kind of just stuck on that now. The way I think about it, it's like, I remember when Saving Private Ryan came out and they had those crazy battle scenes, and then after that, every battle scene in every movie was like that.
It's just like anything that's influential, right? You inevitably get the copycatters.
So what do you think? Do you think it's the most important piece of technology of our lifetime?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think it's probably the most important. It's definitely the most influential, at least in our generation. How basically now people have a computer in their pocket all the time. And even people who weren't connected in the past because they couldn't afford a computer or they just weren't into technology. Now even a good portion of those people have a phone, a smartphone of some sort. And that's all due to the iPhone and, combining not only a phone, but the internet and your email and everything all into one device. How could that not be probably one of the most important pieces of technology in our lifetime?
And that to me is the big difference. There were cell phones before the iPhone. There were pocket phones, but man, they were nothing like what you saw with the iPhone, which we'll kind of get into in a minute here. So what about you? When did your Apple love begin? I mean, beyond even the iPhone, I don't know if your Apple love started before that or with the iPhone. Like, what's your origin story here?
Well, I went to school for graphic design, and Macintosh was really the computer of choice for design programs. I started using Macs, and I never really looked back after that. So from there, then it was just, the iPod, and then it was the iPhone, and all of the other things that came after it.
So when did you first get an iPhone?
I got the very first iPhone.
Oh, you
Pretty
did get
much,
the first one.
Yeah. pretty much right when it came out, because I was the first person in the company that I worked at the time to have one. I remember actually sitting in meetings and I had it, and I was sort of embarrassed that I had it because it was a really expensive phone. I shelled out some cash for that because, in my opinion, I thought this is it. This is like the next thing. This is the thing that people are going to need in their lives, and I wanted to be on the front end of that, and learn about it.
Definitely an early adopter.
Yeah. It was funny because I saw the transition because I was really sensitive to the fact that like I had the first one, and there were even people who were like chief executive officers in that company who didn't even have one. They looked at mine and they were like, what do you think of that? And how does it work? And then I saw that transition from nobody having one and even the IT department being standoffish of implementing, the company being allowed to use them, to everybody having one, because it was the phone for all-in-one communications.
Yeah, definitely.
What about you?
It became the thing. Me, I was a little farther back. It took me a while, and actually it was you. You were the first person I knew that had an iPhone, and I really got to see up close and hands-on an iPhone. Once I saw that, I don't know when that was, sometime in the early aughts, the first part of the 2000s, so like,
Yeah.
I don't know, 2008, 9, 10, somewhere around there. I saw yours and never looked at my other phone the same again because it just looked like a piece of garbage in my pocket that does nothing. This was the time of contracts, which up until recently everybody was in. So I was like saddled to this 2-year contract before I could upgrade, before it made financial sense to upgrade, I should say, with Verizon. So even after I saw that and I was like, I need one of these things, I had to kind of wait it out a little bit. I ended up getting an iPod Touch because that was like the closest thing to an iPhone without being an iPhone.
That's true. Yeah, I do remember that.
And then, so I had that for a while, and then when my contract ended, my first iPhone was like a 4 or a 4S, somewhere around 2011 or something like that. So I only had 3 now. I got that, then I upgraded a few years later to like a 5S. Had that for 4 years until I just now upgraded to the iPhone 8.
Oh, do you have the 8?
Yeah, I just got the 8, which is a big jump from what the 5S was. New York Times, when I was reading a review of them talking about the iPhone 8, they're kind of like, it's basically like taking everything, all the improvements they made, this is kind of the best of. This is our best version of the first generation of iPhone, which, to me is exactly what it is.
Yeah. Super snappy, super quick, just all of the right features that you need to make it a perfect companion in your day-to-day life, right?
Yeah, and it's so thin, so nice looking. I actually have had it, I don't know how long I've had it now, close to a month, and I haven't got a case yet, which I know is dangerous, but man, it's so nice looking without the case.
That's the first mistake that every person makes.
I know.
I've made it several times, even with my current phone.
Yeah, it's just, nothing wrong with a case. It just mars the appearance of it a little bit, though it's practical and it definitely is helpful. I know I'll get one eventually. It's also slippery without it, so it just slides out of my pockets when I sit down.
Yeah, I have a 7 Plus.
The big guy.
Yeah, I really didn't buy into the bigger phone. I thought it was dumb for a long time. And then, it's really hard for me now. Like, I almost don't want to go back. And I'm looking at the iPhone 10, and it is slightly smaller. I was talking to a guy at Apple, and he was like, well, but, it's all screen. So it's essentially like you get the same screen real estate as the 8 Plus. But it's weird because, I started to think about it like this over the years, is that I use my phone for everything. I have a couple of different iPads, and the iPads I don't really use like I probably thought I would. And so the bigger phone actually just sort of bridged the gap, and now I have a little laptop and my phone that I use most of the time,
That's interesting. So are you getting the X? What do you think? Are you on the fence about what you're going to do?
I think I'm going to get it. As we're recording right now, the supply of iPhone 10s are pretty much nil. Yeah, nada. So I could very likely see me not even getting my hands on one for a while.
But you seem like you're okay with waiting at the moment. You're not. I guess you weren't on at 3 a.m. trying to order one on the day they came out.
No, and what's funny is I did go on, but it said 5 to 6 weeks out. I'm like, screw it, I'll just wait. And it'll give me a chance. I'll be able to see it in the store too and handle it.
I was wondering whether you would jump on that or not. A little more cautious with this one, huh?
It was hard mainly because of the 8 Plus. The 8 Plus, I thought, man, I don't know. I kind of want the bigger phone. So
yeah, I remember. I thought it was still a pretty big screen. So I guess you're saying they're pretty much comparable in actual screen size because it goes edge to edge on the 10?
Yeah, it's not quite as big as the Plus, but it's close, in terms of screen size and real estate.
Interesting. So what do you love most about the iPhone? Why have you stuck with it for a decade now, I guess? You've been in a relationship with the iPhone for a decade now. Congratulations.
Yeah, like 1/4 of my life I've spent with this.
This
a quarter
device
of my life.
in your pocket.
Yeah, I think it's the ecosystem. We've talked about it before. I mean, we use Macs in the office. We have Macs at home, and it just works. For us, I think that's one of the big reasons anyone sticks to the same device over time. Even if it's a Samsung device, it's really just the convenience of sticking with that device at this point.
Yeah, and I think once you get into that ecosystem too, you just get used to it, So even especially for us, elderly gentlemen, it takes a while to even the prospect of thinking about adjusting to a new device and all the different ways it works and everything. I'm just, you're so accustomed to the kind of Apple way. It seems daunting to even want to try. But that's the other thing is I've never really wanted to try. I mean, any Apple device I've had, particularly the iPhone, I have zero complaints about. That's the reason, if there was some sort of problem I would have had with it, I would have probably switched or at least looked into something else. I've never even done that. I've never even sampled. I've never thought to myself, I don't know if this is the right relationship for me. Maybe I should look around, see if there's something better out there. You know what I mean? I haven't had those thoughts. In my mind, I'm dating up with the iPhone, and I'm going to stick with it as long as it sticks with me.
You're like a 7 and the iPhone is like a 10, literally.
Exactly. Exactly. Literally a 10 now.
Yeah. I love that you said we're elderly men. We're like, I don't know how to work this darn contraption.
I can't switch devices.
It's funny, but that's true. As you get older, there's going to become a point in time where people are going to be like, come on, Apples are so old. You don't want that, Grandpa. And you'll be like, no, I've had this thing for half my life.
It's what I know.
Don't try to get me to leave my device.
I don't want your newfangled mind phone.
Oh, yeah. So people are going to be like, wow, we know a lot about these guys and why they like iPhones.
Which, really useful information. A lot of people will be happy they have now.
So in a minute, we'll talk about the release of the iPhone 10 and what that means for Apple and the iPhone moving forward. But first, let's get a quick word from our sponsor.
Today's sponsor is Farmers Insurance. Insurance can be confusing, overwhelming, and time-consuming. At Hire Insurance Agency, we remove the guesswork and hassle, helping you protect what matters most. We offer a wide range of auto, home, business, and life insurance policies to help you meet your specific needs. Call 844-543-3463 or visit hireinsurance.com. That's HYRE insurance.com for more information.
Every time you call on me, I drop what I do. You are my best friend and we've got some things to do.
That was an audio clip from a recent iPhone 10 ad featuring the song Best Friend by Sophie Tucker. While you can't see the picture with that, the commercial focuses on the iPhone 10's new edge-to-edge screen design and Super Retina OLED display. That's a key feature of the new iPhone. But will it be enough to make the iPhone 10 a success? We're about to tell you. So a little quick background here. As we're recording this, we're about a week out from when the iPhone 10 first became available for pre-order. I think it did pretty well in the pre-orders. What would you say, Patrick?
It sold out in the first 3 minutes or something. They started slipping the shipping dates to weeks out.
And I did see on the day after its release, they quoted an Apple spokesperson as saying that the demand was off the charts. The X is definitely a hot product. So what would you say? What do you think of the top features of the new iPhone?
Well, I think the Face ID, right, which is the big step forward, and the Animoji. Those are like the two big things I keep hearing more and more about. Like everybody who was doing the unboxing and all the news and media, they keep coming back to those two specific things.
Yeah, I definitely see those a lot. The facial recognition, I think, is kind of the key one, the real like future technology they kind of tapped on with that. I would love to see a future of no more passwords and usernames and everything becomes facial technology.
Well, and that's the thing that's going to change everything moving forward for phones in the future, right? I mean, it's going to be the Face ID. The Animoji is more of like a gimmicky thing, but something that people are going to probably play with a ton. I mean, we've talked about emojis in the past. I mean, you can't get away from them. It's like the next version of human communication.
Yeah, and I'm probably wrong on this, but the Animoji, that was the thing. I remember watching the Apple event when they were talking about this, and I'm like, why are they spending time talking about this? Like, it seems like such a side gimmicky thing, and it'll probably become like a beloved thing that people go crazy with. But to me, that was like nothingness.
Yeah.
I thought the new OLED screen was kind of a big one too, because it's always been odd to me. I'm surprised it took Apple so long to go OLED, which is surprising because they usually go for the best stuff, and OLED's widely considered to be a better picture with your darker blacks and more color pop to them. I know Samsung's been using them for years, though they do say it's the first OLED screen that rises to the standards of the iPhone.
Well, and that's always what people say, right? Is that Apple's not always the first out of the gate. They're not always first, but they come out, they basically perfect whatever it is that they decided to focus on, right? So that's their strength. When they come out with something, you know it's quality and you know it's not going to, you know, blow up, as we know some phones do occasionally, catch on fire. I'm not naming any names.
Yeah, I was just going to say one more kind of thing I thought was interesting. I don't know if you call it a feature or a change or whatever you want to call it, is the elimination of the home button. Kind of an iconic part of the iPhone since the beginning, right? So that adjustment where to make more room for screen, which seems like such a simple, almost why wasn't it the solution in the first place solution. I think it's a good choice. I think you needed some kind of big jump between the generations, and that's probably the biggest one.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing about that is, you know, it's also the evolution of software and even the hardware. Because originally you didn't have those like swipe ups, you know, double tap, and you didn't have Face ID, right, either. So definitely allowed for that. And we'll see, because, you know, I've heard a lot of reviews now, and they're talking about some of the things that they had to replace gestures with the actual home button. They said, well, you know, it actually makes 2 steps now, whereas it was 1 before. And everybody will get used to it at some point, but we'll see how people get used to that.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who have a lot of trouble with that adjustment, especially folks who are even older than us elderly people.
Yeah, us old guys. So do you think a lot of people will shell out the dough for the $100,000 iPhone? The $100,000 iPhone?
Do I think people will pay $1 million for a new iPhone?
Seriously, what do you think the ceiling is when it comes to iPhone prices? Do you think this is it, or do you think could it be more than 1,000? Could it be 1,500, 2,000?
I think we're going to see 1,500 to 2,000 pretty quick here.
Do you really?
Yeah, probably like in the next 3 years. Unless there's some sort of shift with this generation of iPhone where Apple's like, all right, we need to get more people on board, so we're going to do a lower price to pull people in with, you know, one iteration of it. Apple always seems to have their prices just a little beyond what the average consumer wants to pay, like just outside the fingertips, you know what I mean? So if like Samsung's coming up behind them and pushing towards 1,000, I feel like Apple's going to keep going up, and I feel like they're just going to start pushing in that direction, or at least testing what people are willing to pay for them.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to push back on you a little bit here, Shad. I just like pulling things out from previous episodes.
Yeah. Who doesn't love the pushback?
So I don't know. I think this is the upper echelon. I do, because here's the thing. The reason why I think we're even talking about the price is because they stopped subsidizing the phone costs. And because of that, we actually see the real price of the phones. We would have never talked about this 5 years ago because we were probably paying $1,000 for that phone, but we were paying it through our contract. The AT&Ts and the Verizons were all basically subsidizing the cost of that phone, but we just had to stay in a contract for 3 years. You know what I mean? I can imagine that there might be some people that will pay a little bit more for a phone, but the majority, I don't think, would be okay with paying $1,500 or $2,000 for their phone. I just don't think the demand for it would be that great for a majority of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's hard to say, like, even right now, even with how many people right now are willing to pay $1,000 for a phone. I don't know. Probably the majority aren't, right?
I was just reading an article yesterday about how the pre-orders were like 1,000 and change, right, for the phone. And Best Buy was selling the phone pre-orders for $100 more. And people started complaining. Why would you charge us $100 more? And Best Buy basically came back and said, our customers have said in the past that they'd be willing to pay a little bit more to have access to the device, meaning that they could actually get the device as opposed to, you know, being sold out. And in the same press release said you can't actually buy it through Best Buy unless you go through Verizon or AT&T or whatever. So, you know, that's where I think, you know, people are going to push back a little bit if you're trying to gouge them for a little bit more money. I think we're at the top tier. That's my argument anyway.
But what do you think? Does that mean you think prices are going to actually go down in the future?
Here's the thing. Apple has a tendency to, even with their computers, they'll start off, they'll be, just for argument's sake, it's $1,500 computer. And then a couple years into that model, as they've sort of like perfected the efficiency of the production line or whatever it is, or the supply chain, or the cost of the components come down, start selling the new versions of it for, you know, $1,349. And I think that's probably what you're going to see in the iPhone 10, right? The iPhone 11 will probably be, you know, $900 or $950 or whatever it is. And then, you know, have the staggered tier for storage capacities and that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess my point in my thinking was, I agree with you that majority isn't ready to accept those kind of prices yet. But I think our higher end phones, especially from the Apples and Samsungs, are going to keep pushing upward, I think, pretty quickly.
I can understand where you're coming from there for sure with what's available on a phone and what a phone does, even though it does an awful lot of things for us on a day-to-day. I still think it's a little far off.
What about a phone you can stretch out into different sizes? It can be your TV, it can be your computer, it can be your phone. It's $20,000. Are you paying it?
No. If it could be my car?
Well, that's just ridiculous.
Okay. Well, yeah, it is. So what do you think the 10 means for the Apple brand? Do you think that that's the future of the iPhone? I mean, like they said, is this a product that has a shelf life? Can it go on forever this way?
I think in terms of the Apple brand, I will say this. I think this shifted my perspective a little bit on the Apple brand, which I thought was like maybe creatively struggling a bit compared to what we saw in the past decade anyways. I don't want to say bored by it, but not as wowed as I once was. But I think kind of the move of putting a bow on the previous generation and launching a new generation, kind of like what they do with video game consoles. This is the end of this generation. We're moving on to something new. I think that was a smart move to revitalize both the Apple brand and the iPhone. You know, it just injected that little bit of excitement or life back into it, from my perspective anyway. And I think, you know, the iPhone in general as a product can go on for a pretty long time if they keep following this model where being like, all right, this is this generation. Now we've got a game changer and we're moving into the next generation. I think if they keep doing that, iPhone can go on at least for the rest of our lifetimes, or until we're surfing the web with brain microchips.
iBrain?
Yeah, the iBrain.
That'll be the day right there. I'll just imagine wherever I want to go and I'm there.
Yeah, you just come in and somebody, you know, shoots a chip into your brain and they're like, $20,000, please.
I guarantee people would pay for that. You know?
No doubt.
I mean, you look at any medical procedure and you're going to pay that anyway. I agree with you. I think, you know, really the iPhone can go on incrementally improving, and generally people would be fine with that. Like you said, I mean, even though this is a big jump forward for them with the Face ID and stuff, it's not like they changed the form factor. I mean, it's not that big of a leap. It's incremental enough, though, that everybody's happy with that. So I think that they can go on forever that way. Like you said.
We kind of didn't really talk about any negatives with the iPhone 10, and I did have a few little gripes, you know, I wanted to bring up. And one of them was kind of what you just mentioned, incremental improvements. The iPhone 10 did leave me wanting a little more. I know it's just version 1, but for a new generation, one of the things I kind of wanted was something a little bit bolder and more different.
You're probably not alone. I think there's a lot of people who are even Apple lovers who want it to be more.
Like you, that's probably the reason you didn't pre-order it immediately.
I think that's part of the problem now is that we're so spoiled.
Yeah.
That we're so spoiled with this technology. I mean, that we have all this technology, we have all this information, we have the world at our fingertips, and we're like, Face ID, well, that's cool. It's cool,
Yeah, this amazing technology. We're like, it's all right.
Yeah, I wish it was a little bit nicer. Some of the camera options there, the features where it masks out the background.
Yeah.
That portrait mode. Wireless charging, the things that we have been talking about for years, like, God, I wish I had that. It's just funny how spoiled we've become that, we go, I wish it was more.
If it doesn't totally blow your mind, it's a bit of a disappointment, right?
Yeah. But I think in reality, that's why I say incremental improvements. This is a key to every piece of technology today, is that if you make too big of a jump, I think it scares people.
Yeah, and I think even, Apple's had that problem in the past where they jump too far ahead too quick. And one, those are usually the products you see a lot of problems with, because they're reaching so far ahead. And two is the other thing, like you're saying, people just aren't quite ready for it.
Yeah, you look at the Newton was way before the Palm Pilot and people just weren't ready and that thing flopped, right? It's like Google Glass. I would say it's very comparable, right? Could it have been the iPhone of today? Yeah, I think it very well could have been. But the problem was it was too far of a reach. People just couldn't get past it. But if they would have implemented things slowly, could have been a big change for the world, just like the iPhone.
It's a good point. You make a good case. I'll just hit on my one other tiny gripe, and that is with this is stupid, I know, but it's one of those things, and I feel like they'll improve it in the future, but the edge-to-edge screen, it drives me nuts that there's still that little notch on the top for the camera and speaker.
Yeah.
I don't know what the workaround is for that. Obviously, they don't either at this point, or haven't just got it where they want it to be, but I just look at it and I'm like, I just want to pull that back so it's just, pure screen. It would be so much cooler if you just didn't have that little thing like sticking out there.
Yeah, I think you'll probably see that at some point. I'm assuming at some point those OLED screens will allow them to put the camera either behind it or whatever so that
Some good conversation around the iPhone 10. Next up, we're talking about those little tiles that make the iPhone so powerful as we share some of our top app recommendations.
What's great about the iPhone is that if you want to check snow conditions on the mountain, there's an app for that. If you want to check how many calories are in your lunch, there's an app for that. And if you want to check where exactly you parked the car, there's even an app for that. Yep, there's an app for just about anything, only on the iPhone.
You just heard an audio clip from a 2009 Apple commercial for the iPhone 3G. With a now iconic and often parodied line, there's an app for that. That line may be a legendary piece of marketing gold, but it's also more or less true, with the Apple App Store now featuring over 2.2 million apps. We're about to let you in on a handful of the best ones. So, Shad, do you have a lot of apps on your phone?
I consider myself an app minimalist. I don't overdo it. I've really cut down, I think, in the last couple years too. I add them very sparingly, and I'm pretty quick to tidy up, and remove ones. Like if I get something and I'm not using it, I just delete it off there. I'm not like what I would call an app hoarder. I try to keep it pretty minimal. I have 10 to 20 apps I probably use on a regular basis, and then another 20 that I use occasionally. So
I love that term. I think that should actually become a term, app hoarder.
App hoarder and app minimalist. I'm more in the minimalist camp. What about you?
I'm somewhere in between, I would say. I do have a decent amount of apps on my phone. I wouldn't say I'm an app minimalist, but I do find myself deleting apps every so often, and just purging. So that's where I don't fall into the hoarder camp. I also periodically try new apps just to see if they can help me in some way, So when you're going through your phone and your pages of apps, how many pages can you scroll of apps? I mean, I have my phone right here. Let's see. I have three pages.
Okay. You probably folder a lot of them too, huh?
I do folder some, like productivity and utilities and stuff. There's a lot of things that I just don't use on a regular basis that still stay on my phone for that specific case scenario.
Yeah, I do the same exact thing. So was it easy for you to determine your recommendations you're giving here today? Did they immediately pop into your head or did it take some thought?
It was pretty easy for me. If I'm recommending something, it usually means I myself use it and think it's worth it.
Yeah.
So
for me, I was trying to, I was looking at not just like things I use all the time, but things maybe are still mainstream, but slightly less common, I guess. I regularly use, like productivity stuff. Like I use Evernote and Dropbox and Slack. And I think a lot of people know about those things to some extent. I was trying to, look at some other things that people might not know about.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, although those are great apps, like Evernote is a necessity. I could give a whole list of productivity apps, but I just picked ones too that I thought were interesting. And like, I'll tell people about these apps sometimes and they'll be like, oh, I've never heard of that. Or I didn't know that did that. That's cool.
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe that's a different episode, productivity apps.
For sure.
So let's jump into it. What's your first app recommendation?
Well, this is probably the most mainstream one. And if people haven't put this on their phone yet, they should. It's 1Password. It basically stores all of your individual passwords and sensitive data and can help you generate new passwords for various logins. So essentially, it's a password manager. It's an app on your phone. You get it on your computer, on a tablet, whatever. It stores information that you have, all the sensitive information you have, in a virtual vault. The thing I love about this one and what makes it so great is it makes passwords easy and secure. I mean, which I think is one of the things that people struggle with on a day-to-day. It's plain and simple as that.
Yeah, I think having some sort of password manager is essential now. I used 1Pass for a while. Now I use Dashlane, but you're probably like me. You have billions of passwords, and there's no way. I just gave up on trying to remember them with an app like that where you can have it just create something that's totally weird and random that you'll never remember if you lose, if you can't access it for some reason, but something that's uncrackable.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, it is such a critical piece of the world today. I mean, you have to have passwords and secure ones. And so having a place to store those and make them easily accessible on multiple devices, that's the big thing, right? Because you can move from your computer to your phone to your tablet or whatever it is that you're on and get those passwords is really critical.
Yeah.
So what's your first?
It's JustWatch. Have you ever used the JustWatch app, Patrick?
No, I haven't.
You got to check it out. So this is a great app. I actually discovered it fairly recently. It's great for those of us who are cord cutters struggling to find what's new on streaming. That's one of the problems. You have to know what you're looking for. Well, this app allows you can kind of pick the streaming services you have, and it'll give you like a daily update. Like, here's what's new on this streaming service. Or here's what's, popular among the streaming services you have. And you can create a watch list. Oh, here's a movie that comes up. It's new. I want to watch it. Kind of convenient way to search what you actually have, as opposed to, just diving into this sea of everything.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I like that. That's the hardest part about cutting the cable cord is search around all the different apps and networks and all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's something I think people will get better at, or Apple and Roku will create more ways to bring that stuff together, but it hasn't totally happened yet, so this is definitely a good resource in that regard. A side recommendation, another entertainment app I've been using that I found recently was Letterboxd, which is a social network for movie fans, basically. But what I use it for is to just keep track and rate the movies I've watched, which is pretty interesting.
That is cool. I don't know if you remember, once upon a time, Netflix used to allow you to do that. You used to be able to rate easily. And then when you were connected with people on Netflix, like your friends, it would show you what they rated a movie. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember it because me, you, and another coworker of ours were the only 3 people who ever used it. But we had a really good time mocking each other about what we were watching.
Yeah, like, you gave that 5 stars? Are you freaking kidding me?
Never used. No one else ever used it except us 3, I'm convinced.
Well, they did get rid of that feature, so I wouldn't be surprised. We were the 3 out of the millions of
billions,
plus.
Yeah.
So that's a good recommendation. My next on my list is Snapseed. Have you heard of this one?
I don't know Snapseed.
Okay, Snapseed is a photo editing application. It's weird because the name doesn't really imply that at all. And it's now owned by Google. Nix Software is the one who developed it. and then they were acquired by Google at some point. It came out in 2011. But it's just a fantastic option for those who really like more control over their photos that they take on their phones. It has filter capabilities, the likes of Instagram, and it lets you place text on your photos. You can do cool vignettes and all that kind of stuff. I'd say the greatest part about this app is that, allows you more control over your photos, way more than what you can do like in the native Photos app on your iPhone, right? Or even your Android phone. This is the app for you.
It's a good one. I'll have to check that out. My second recommendation is actually kind of related, and it's Google Photos, which is, I think, a much better experience than the Apple Photos app. It's in the cloud, right? So all your photos you take on your iPhone won't take up that storage space you might need on your phone. So originally I had my old phone, 16 gigs, which I capped out pretty quick. And every time, I got to that point where every time I'm taking a photo, it's like, you don't have room. You don't have room. So Google was really smart, and they were playing commercials for this that just showed that exact experience. Like people going to take a great picture and then get that signal on there telling you can't take it. You got no space. So that's kind of how I started using it. Great example of marketing at work. I found it just to be a much better app for organizing your photos, for finding photos, to make collages and photo collage videos, edit and add filters, and share photos with other people. In my mind, a better version of what the Apple's Photo app does or is supposed to do.
Yeah, it's interesting you use that one instead of the one that's on there. I think they've definitely gotten better in the Photos app. And, you can store a lot of your original size photos up in the cloud now, in iCloud.
In iCloud, that's true.
But yeah, if you use Google Photos, that's good because then, the rest of the world will see your photos, so that's good.
I like the world to have access to my private information. But it's free, and it's unlimited storage.
That's true. And, what's funny about those two picks is they're both Google picks, right?
I know. Talking about an Apple product and Google apps.
Yeah. So my last one is Feedly. You ever heard of Feedly?
I have heard of Feedly.
News aggregator application. And you can get it on web browsers and mobile devices and everything. It's cross-platform, so it's iOS and Android. But this is a great app for anyone who just wants to have their news come to them, and they can pick the sources, right? Unlike the native news apps inside your phone, in that you can basically put any source into there and it aggregates it. So if you read Wired, for example, you can have that come in, which is a pretty mainstream news feed, right? But then you also like the Gouda Life food blog. That's actually a real thing. Then you can have them all come into this one app. So instead of having to go out and search each one of those sites individually, you just go to your app. So great little app, and I use it daily.
I've used Feedly on my computer. I don't actually have the app on my phone, though. So that's a good recommendation there.
You should try it.
I will. So my last recommendation is restaurant related to the Gouda Life. It's the No Wait app. Have you ever used the No Wait app?
I have not, actually, but I have heard of it.
It's a free app. I used it first when I was going to First Watch. It's a good restaurant, as you know. They always have long waits there because they're only open breakfast, brunch. So I found this, and basically what you do is you just go on there. You can see what the wait times are for participating restaurants, and you can check in. So what I would do is, I'll see, all right, I go on there. It's a 45-minute wait. Check in before we leave the house. By the time we get there, get out of the car, it's like almost time for us to be called up. Pretty handy, pretty smart. They only have certain restaurants they work with, but I think they're incrementally expanding that. And they were acquired by Yelp not so long ago, so we could see increased integration with more restaurants coming soon. An example of technology at its finest, just saving you a little time and effort.
I like the idea of something that helps the restaurant goer's experience, right?
Yeah, it's helpful. It's handy.
I just wish I went out to eat as much as I used to, because, when you're with the family, a lot of times you just don't get the time. You just don't get the time.
No, you don't. You don't, which is definitely true. That's why it's sporadically handy for those for those of us with kids,
That one's deep in one of my folders. It's going to be
it's buried.
For those sporadic moments.
You gotta pull it out and blow the dust off. Taken together as usual with our list, a great kind of set of recommendations there. Some apps, hopefully some you might want to check out. Do you have anything else? Any almost mades or honorable mentions that you love so much?
Do you even know me?
I like to ask every time just to kind of, poke the bear.
I think you only ask me because it's your lead-in for the 15 additional honorable mentions that you have on your list that you want to add. And you're like, oh, well, you know what? Okay,
well,
you don't have any.
asking. I'm like, you don't have anything? So, all right, shut up and let me talk then. I can't limit things. I only have one mention, and it's an app I've never actually used, but I'm kind of intrigued by it. Maybe you've used it. It's the 1 Second Everyday app. Have you heard of this? Use it?
I have a vague recollection of hearing about it.
It's a paid app. It's like $4.99, I think. And the idea is you record a 1 second video of your life every day and use that to create a 4-minute video of your year. And the whole app's set up to kind of make it really easy to do this so you don't miss any days in there. I just think it's a cool idea that essentially gives you a means of movieizing your life a little bit, From the mundane to the amazing things you do throughout a year, just get this glimpse of yourself throughout the year. And, the founder of the app even talks about how, if I do this for like 10 years or 20 years, I can watch like full decades of your life unfold if you put it together in like these, hour-long videos, which is a crazy and interesting idea.
Yeah, I like that. And, we're coming up on the end of the year, so maybe this is going to be a great app for our listeners to pick up for 2018.
Yeah, maybe I'll actually get it and commit to it for 2018.
Let's do that. Let's try it.
I'm in. You in? I'm in.
Yeah.
Well, some good stuff. And on that note, let's get our final nugget of human wisdom.
So our human wisdom today comes in the form of a quote by the late Steve Jobs and some random tweets with the hashtag best app ever. Both of these things really relevant in today's episode. So the quote from Steve is, he says this: I have a great respect for incremental improvement, and I've done that sort of thing in my life, but I've always been attracted to the more revolutionary changes. I don't know why. Maybe because they're harder. They're much more stressful emotionally, and you usually go through a period where everybody tells you that you've completely failed. It's a great testament to what we were talking about earlier with the iPhone, the incremental improvements versus the revolutionary changes that everybody wants out of a iPhone 10.
Kind of hits on that point we were talking about. Revolutionary is what blows you away, but incremental is what does most of the hard labor in between,
Yeah, since we were talking about great apps and we were making our recommendations, a few random tweets, and the first one comes from @UltraCHMO on Twitter. He says, best app ever, Hodor soundboard. Hodor, from Game of Thrones. And then there was one from Broximar, that's Broximar, and he or she wrote, remote check-in on the @Marriott app is one of the best things ever. So great little tidbit of knowledge there if you're using the Marriott app. And then Barry First Grade, Beary, First Grade. That's all one word, by the way. She says, I don't think there is a bigger joy than listening to learning. And she's talking about the @Seesaw app. That's SEESAW, a learning app for kids. It's a student-driven digital portfolio. So maybe a few more apps. Again, I didn't have any honorable mentions, so I thought I'd give you a little bit from the Twitterverse.
Interesting selection. I'm most intrigued by Hodor soundboard. What do you think that does? Do you know anything about it?
No, I don't, but I want to say it has something to do with like Hodor and maybe some of the things he said in the show, the Game of Thrones, over the years.
But all he ever said was Hodor.
Exactly. Maybe they auto-tuned him.
Just out of sheer curiosity, I'm going to have to check it out and see what that does. I don't know if that's app-worthy, but We'll find out. Check it out.
So a little human wisdom today. And that's it for today's episode, everyone. You can find current and past episodes of the podcast on speakinghuman.com. You can also find the podcast on iTunes, where you can be a superhuman by leaving us a review. It's a little bit of a process, but we'd love to hear your feedback.
Hit us up on Twitter and let us know your top iPhone app recommendations @speaking_human on Twitter. That's @speaking_human on Twitter. And feel free to use the hashtag #BestAppEver. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Speaking Human. Catch you then, humans.
Speaking Human.
Yes, my friends, the iPogo can do anything.
Anything?
Oh, yeah. If you want to comb your cat, there's an app for that. If you have to fix a flat, there's an app for that. Need a word that rhymes with gnat?
Mat, rat, fat, mat.
Or a place to hang your hat? Got a chimp who likes to chat? There's an app, there's an app, there's an app for that. If your butter needs a pat, there's an app for that. If you need to rat-a-tat-tat,
There's an app for that?
gotta practice singing scat.
Billy-dee-dop-de-dap-de-dop.
Wanna meet a boy named Matt?
Hi, I'm Matt. Nice to meet you.
Count to 10 in no time flat.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
There's an app, there's